Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 258. Today we're going to talk about Metallum. This is a game from Galacta, which is a Polish publisher. It's a two-player game set in outer space, and players are kind of like mining planets and setting down these little extractors to get resources and get money out of. Kind of reminds me of EVE Online if you've ever played that. But it's kind of a very highly produced two-player only game. And they actually sent me this game and another game which I'll be reviewing in the next video, right after this one, also a two-player game. But anyway, before I review this too much, let's jump into how this game plays, and then I'll come back and tell you more about it. Okay, I've got the game here set up. Now each player is going to get in their color one of these little factory ships, and these basically are going to be flying along to these different planets, which you can see most of these are face down, and they're going to be dropping off their little extractor factories here. So these will get dropped off. There's cubes in blue and red, and basically what you're going to be doing is flying around, giving them different commands which you're going to issue from these little tiles here. I'll talk about that in a second. But then the game takes place over 9 rounds. Every round you're going to score majority on these different planets. Whoever has the most cubes gets the most money. And it comes to these nice little dials here. You can keep track of the money that way. Now these planets here, you're always going to start off on alpha here. So you can see here is the alpha planet there. Each planet has a little special ability that you can do when you're on that planet. And then there are actually 7 planet tiles here that can be shuffled up and randomly distributed. So there's actually 2 that are not here. So you can actually see there's 5 here, and then always at the end, it's always face down, but it's always going to be the same planet here, and this is Omega. And then always the first player to basically land on a space, and they're going to automatically reveal it. They're just going to get a little bonus dollar on their little dial there. Finally, there's also some cool bonus cards up there. I'll talk about those in just a second. But basically, each round is going to work the exact same way. So what you're going to first do is you're going to organize this little matrix of tiles here. This is going to give your ship different actions, have it move around, put extractors down, maybe let you buy cards, do different things like that. Then you can always take the special action of a planet that you're on at some point in that turn. So you maybe will take the special ability of the planet, then exact some of your commands here from your tiles, or do the tiles first or somewhere in between and then do that. So you kind of have a choice in the order that you're going to execute things, but once you execute those, then you're going to take a look at all the planets that have cubes on them and then score them, and then again players are going to get money for having majority on some of the different planets there. So let's take a look at how these action matrix things here are going to work. So each player has a shield here, and this is where you're going to be figuring out what your ship is going to do. So these are, think of it sort of like a programmable type of thing. I'm going to move this just for, getting in the camera and everything. But you have these sort of different corners here. So the first thing to notice here is you have these colored wires here, so they have to have always lined up colored wires. And the thing that you can do is actually have up to 4 commands in a spot here. So if we take a look at this here, you can have a somewhat complex command. Now if you wanted, you could like leave out this one here and just do 3 of the commands. Now one reason you might do that is because once everybody's finished with their commands, then you're going to take a look here at the numbers. This is sort of like the complexity rating. So this has a complexity rating of 5. Whoever has the lower complexity rating is going to get to do their actions first. Or I should say, they get to choose who does their actions first. So you maybe let the other guy go first based on what you think that they're going to do. So there's a little bit of cat and mouse with that whole aspect of the game. So there's basically a couple simple rules with this. You always need a move command, which is always going to be up here in the upper left. And so you have to always at least move 1 space, and you always have to end up moving exactly that number of spaces. So you can see here, this actually says move up to 3 planets. So if I was on this spot here and I took the move 3 planets action, obviously I can't move this way, so I've got to move exactly 3 this direction. So you can move either direction. If I had the action here to move 1, I could move 1 either way, but you've got to move the full amount, and you've always got to do a move action. Now the rest of the icons here are going to correspond to different actions. You don't actually have to do any of these. You can choose not to do them if you wish, but you've always got to do the move. And again, the only other rule is that you need to have sort of a logical program that makes sense by matching the different colored wires. So what are some of the different things you can do here? Well, we've already seen the move, and that's represented by these little globes here with the little arrow. That tells you how many spaces you're going to move. You can also see here these little sort of robotic looking things here. This is going to tell you how many cubes or extractors to put on the planet that your ship is currently on here. So there you can put 1, here you can put 2, and now you're starting to say, well, why would I ever, use the guy that only puts 1 on? Well, after you use this subroutine, so let's say this is the first round, I use these are now not available to use until 3 rounds have passed. Or I should say, basically every 3 rounds you're going to reset and get all of your tiles back. So you've got to be sort of diligent about when you kind of make your big move. So maybe you'll shoot way down the track there and then get a whole bunch of cubes out, and the other guy, he's just kind of puttering along and so on. So you've got to really kind of plan out and kind of guess what your opponent might do because he's got the same tiles that you do. So there's a little bit of deduction that's going to happen there. One interesting action you can do is you can do this deposit report, and this actually lets you place one of these tiles here. So you can actually put a sort of a negative tile or a sort of a positive tile on one of the planets. So here you can see I've got one of the planets here. So if I wanted to make this sort of a poor producing planet, then I can do that, or I can make it a rich producing planet. Now every round we're going to score. Now normally whoever has the most cubes, so let's say we're like this, you got 3 cubes of red and then 1 of blue. Whoever's got the most, in this case red would get $3, blue would get $1 kind of for second place. Now if this was a richly producing planet, then red's going to get $5, blue's going to get 2. If it's a poor planet, then red would get $1 and blue would get nothing. So it's a way of kind of sabotaging a planet or kind of buffing up a planet where you have hopefully a clear majority there. Then there's a couple other special tiles here. This one will actually let you score a tile just by yourself, so you can pick a tile and score it where it has your ship. And then finally we've got a couple of things here. We've got here a module, purchase of a module, and this is the purchase of one of the cards, and then this one here will let you activate 2 planets on a turn. So let's talk about the planets first, and then we'll talk about the cards. So once on your turn you can activate the special ability of a planet where your ship is on. And now if you activate the tile here to do this, you can actually do it twice, but you can never do the same planet twice. So I can activate this one and then I can move anywhere on any planet I want. If you look over here at Ada, I can put one of my extractors there on any planet. It doesn't have to be the one where my ship's at. And there's a bunch of different special abilities there. Some will let you actually remove extractors. You can place extra extractors like that. So that's going to be kind of one part of your turn is sort of trying to figure out which planet I want to bounce to, and what I can do kind of along the way with my tiles, but then actually really trying to abuse the special ability of the planets. So finally, let's talk about the cards. So here we have the display of cards, and these are the cards you can purchase when you play a tile here with a little module icon there. Now the first thing you're going to notice here is the cost. So the cost up here in the upper left is that number there, so this is $1. But you can see this is actually modified by this position here, going all the way down here to the right. So this one is normally $4, but it's actually going to be $3. Now as these are going to get bought up, then they'll slide down. If the card here on the right hand side is still there, it's going to discard out of the game, and then you're going to refill them from this here. Now these modules here that you're going to buy, you can actually attach them to a planet where your ship is. So they're going to do a bunch of different things. So you can see here at the beginning of the programming phase, place 1 extractor on this planet. Counts as 1 extractor on this planet, so it's kind of a bonus extractor, can't be disrupted usually. At the beginning of the program phase, place 1 extractor, all kinds of different things like that. But these are associated with planets. In the last 3 rounds, you're going to have these action cards come in, and then these are going to be kind of one-shot uses here that you can do and just kind of try to harass your opponent with and things like that. So these cards are going to be kind of interesting to tweak and mess with the strategy as well during the game. So that's pretty much the game. You're just kind of trying to outfox your opponent with these tiles, trying to use the special abilities of the cards and also of the different planets, and then just basically make the most money. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. The first thing I got to say is I really am impressed by the component quality. I'm a big fan of 2-player games, and there's not enough 2-player games that are given kind of the extra love and care, kind of like this one is, and then in the next review of a game from the same company I'm going to look at. Really nice done, nice artwork. The rules are translated very nicely, and I think they should get a little bit of props for that. It is a Polish company, so they did a great job in hiring somebody that speaks English fluently or getting a good translator and it works really well in that regard. You know, the artwork on the planets is really cool. The screens are nicely depicted. They're kind of flimsy after a while, but they've kind of, I mean, I haven't played with that much, and they kind of feel like they've taken a beating. They're only going to last a few more plays. But you could kind of play where covering them up. Actually, in the last game I played, I just was like, screw this thing, and just was kind of covering it with my hand there. You know, not that big a deal. But I like the care that's been provided with this game. It looks really nice. You know, it's not, it comes in a nice box and everything. I don't know why I'm so fixated, but a lot of times you get these kind of throwaway two-player games sometimes that are just, you know, not receive the amount of care that a game that plays just more than two is going to get. But as far as the game goes, it's really interesting because you have the little tiles to kind of program and give, you know, commands to your ships. And so it kind of reminds me of a few games have kind of been doing this recently, not anywhere related to this game, but like Circus Train is a game from Victory Point Games, and then Concordia is a recent release from Rio Grande, and you know, Matt Gert's company. And they have this whole thing, kind of like, you know, you play a card, you play a card, play a card, and you start kind of losing your options until a certain point where you play a card or do something to get all your cards back. In this case, you wait for the third round. So you have to kind of maneuver that kind of aspect, and that really is going to get better the more plays that happens, because you're going to really start to be able to kind of chain a little bit and, you know, work around the planet abilities kind of in a certain way to give you the kind of bonuses to kind of fill in the gaps where the tiles, you know, maybe you need a little bit of help. And so you kind of have to plan that and get that around, and then you've got kind of the other player you've got to consider where they're going to go, where they're going to be placing cubes and getting the majority, because that's really the whole thing, is just kind of one-upping your opponent with the cubes, and, you know, getting the extra bonus scoring and things, and then really trying to consider as well, you know, when to buy the cards and which cards to buy, because you're kind of spending points, because points is money. But, you know, when do you do it? And you kind of do it a little bit early, maybe, to give you a little bit of a buffer, you know, early on, to hopefully last through the game and give you some extra things. Then there's some direct, you know, interaction stuff with blowing away extractors, the cubes, and all that stuff. But there's some preventative measures you can do there. So it's got, I mean, it's a really nice, filly, I keep saying I want to say filler, but I want to really say it's full of things. There's a lot of things that are, you know, invested in. There's a lot to chew on in this game, but it doesn't take very long to play. So I think a friend of mine, Jeff Gamble, he said, what did he say? He called it like a super filler. That's kind of the word you would use. Or, gosh, I'm sorry, Jeff, but I can't remember. He came up with a kind of a good term where it's not like a filler like no thanks, because that's totally a filler. But it's not like a full-on, you know, game that's going to take the whole evening like Twilight Struggle. It's kind of like a nice medium weight thing, but it doesn't take very long at all. You know, right in that 45-minute range. So, you know, these games, this one's here from Galacta. You know, I don't know how readily available they're going to be here in the States. This kind of smells like a game that could be picked up by, like, you know, like a Stronghold or a Z-Man. To me, it kind of feels like, or even a Fantasy Flight. Especially this game, because it has a nice, you know, space theme and stuff like that, and the component quality is there, and the artwork is there, and, you know, the gameplay is there, more importantly. So definitely, if you can get your hands on this, and if, you know, if you're in Europe watching this, definitely take a look at it. It should be more available on that side. And I expect, you know, what comes to mind with this kind of game is I would check, you know, Amazon.de and GameSurplus.com. They really do a good job of getting things over, you know, if you're an American citizen like myself. So definitely a nice, you know, different game. Also, I wanted to say that not really seeing the programmable thing really applied in this way. You know, I've seen programmable games like, you know, Kings of Air Steam and Robo Rally and stuff like that. But this is really cool. It's an interesting way of doing it, where it's not like route driven and network driven. It has, because it has that element of everybody has the same programmable commands, and you can go and get and retrieve every 3 rounds. And it has a little bit of that deduction in it, and it's not really deduction in a way where you're trying to figure something out. It's got this extra. My vocabulary is failing me at this point, but it has that little extra something there that makes it interesting and makes it very unique. Where you have, yes, you got programmable, but like I said, you've got that card retrieval thing every 3 rounds as well. So some really interesting stuff that, you know, I'm very interested to sit down and play again, frankly. So anyway, that is Metallum. Thanks.